I don't know about you, but it's pretty good to be back, even though it is pretty cold. Before I go on, I would like to say thank you all very much for any donations or contributions, because it's helped quite a lot. And if it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't have been able to do any of this. So thank you very much. So we'll start off. What is YWAM and what is a DTS? So for those of you who don't know, I'll just give a brief explanation. YWAM is a global Christian organization that focuses on youth. And they have bases all around the world. They run different schools to teach more about the Bible, to teach and build up leaders, to then go out and help communities. So that's the gist of YWAM. And DTS is a discipleship training course. And that the goal of that is essentially to develop the individual at sort of an accelerated rate. And so the first few months is lectures. So that focuses on like different topics like the Father Heart of God or forgiveness, this or that. And then the few months doing something called outreach. So outreach is going out into communities and helping, whether it be building toilets or running kids programs. So that's the gist of what this all is. And now we're going to dive into it, and I'm going to tell you about my experiences. So this is the front gate of the YWAM base in Battambang in Cambodia. The building you can see there is actually the education building. So that's where all the classrooms are. And then here is the view from my building, the residential building. And there's the big oval there. They do big tournaments. People from all surrounding villages come and play soccer there, which is a great way to really minister to the kids in the surrounding areas. The building behind the trees there is the big like basketball court and auditorium with the stage, and that's the education building again. And then those are the residential buildings there. And then in this corner over here is like the cafeteria. So that's the gist of what the campus is like. It's actually the biggest YWAM base in Asia, I believe, or maybe Southeast Asia, one of the which. But definitely a privilege to get to be there. This is inside of the cafeteria. So every lunchtime, everyone's all there, kids from the schools, all the teachers, all the DTS students, even some people from the streets will all gather there. And it's a great space for like community and fellowship. And you get to chat with people, learn, hear their testimonies. And it's just a really awesome place for fellowship and meeting new people. This is the auditorium area. So they run like kids programs, do community night, which is kind of like a mini church service throughout the week. This is what my room looked like. So there's bunk beds, no aircon, just a fan, which was going all the time because it was so hot. And then there's some bathrooms off to the side. All of them were Khmer. The Khmer is Cambodian. So initially, there was a bit of a language issue because I couldn't understand what they were saying and they couldn't understand what I was saying. So we sort of had to communicate through like hand signals and Google Translate, and we quickly learnt Google Translate isn't very good at translating. Anyways, this was our little timetable for lecture phase. So we would wake up early in the morning, spend some time with God, then we'd have our morning chores. My job was to climb up all the stairs every morning and mop and sweep the rooftops. So there's like a communal area with like a kitchen and some tables up there. So every morning I was sweeping and mopping. And then most days we would have a worship in the morning, whether it was with the whole campus or just the class. And that was just a great way to start the morning instead of going straight into the same old routine, actually taking a moment to be like, yo, God, you're pretty awesome. So I really loved that. It was great. And then lectures and then whatever in the afternoon work duties. We got split into lots of different teams. And my team was the ground crew. So I was there with a hoe, digging the ground every day, 2 hours, crikey in the heat. It was shocking, but it was great. It was great to get to improve the campus. So it really is rewarding in that sense, I guess you could say. So this is what a regular class would look like. So the whiteboard full of stuff. There's English and Khmer written there, so everyone understands what there is. And there's a TV screen up at the top to show videos. We got the flags up the front representing everyone that's there. And so there'll be the speaker of the week and then translator. Depending on whether the speaker is Khmer or English speaking, depends whether it gets translated into Khmer or English. So sometimes the speaker will say something and everyone will laugh, but you don't know what they're saying and you just have to sit there smiling, waiting for the translator. So yeah, very, very different to classrooms here. So there's just another photo. We had fold away tables because often we'd do the worship in the classroom, so we'd move it all to the side, cram everyone in there. Here is the class. So there's lots of us. Most of them were Khmer, so Cambodian, but there were 6 internationals. So there was me from Australia, then there was a lady called Sharon from India, then a lady called Blessy from India as well, and there was a guy called Leo, he was from Vietnam, then a guy, I can't say his name, but he's from China, so it was pretty special that he was able to be with us. And then a lady called Sophia from Ukraine. So that was definitely an interesting mix of people. Yeah, so that was like the regular classes. But one of the really cool things that I wanted to share with you guys is, who here has heard of Billy Graham? Yeah, everyone? Okay, you know how set up like the Evangelistic Association. And so they actually put on this big gospel festival in the city of Siem Reap, which is the tourism capital with the big Buddhist temples everywhere. And so they went to the old international airport on the taxiway, set up this big stage and everything. And people from all over Cambodia, different ministry groups, different outreach teams, some from America, a few guys from England even came over, all to help facilitate this Bible festival. And so I went over there with the rest of my DTS class, and our role was to help set up everything. And so that was the main stage. And then there was hundreds, maybe thousands of chairs. And so it went for 2 days. Each morning, well, not morning, afternoon, in the hot sun, we had to put out the drink bottles underneath all the seats. Every single one of them needed a bottle to make sure everyone could stay hydrated. And so we were there, hot sun, but it was good fun. And sometimes we'd get a break and we'd just get to sit in front of the stage as the people practiced. And so we got to like jump around to the cool music before everyone came, which was good fun, great team building there, good memories. But a very cool thing, which is the main bit I wanted to focus on, was Franklin Graham actually came and spoke both nights. And so I'll just play a quick clip.
Will you come to Jesus tonight? Will you trust him? You see, you've got to be willing to turn from your sins. It's called repentance. Will you repent? Will you turn from your sins? Come to Jesus tonight. Wherever you are tonight. If you've never trusted Jesus, I want you to do something right now. I want you to get up out of your seat and come stand in front of this platform. And by coming, you're saying to God, I'm a sinner. By coming, you're saying to God, I'm sorry for my sins. By coming, you're saying to God, I want to turn from my sins. By coming, you're saying, I want to trust Jesus as my Savior. Will you do that tonight? Will you come to Jesus tonight? Just get up out of your seat and come. Stand right here.
So, what happened right after that little bit, so that was at the end of his speech, was because there's so many chairs on this big taxiway, for about 5, maybe 10 minutes, there was just groups of people moving to the front. They were coming from the food stands, from the chairs, from everywhere. They were just moving to the front towards the stage. And it was just so moving to see so many people who have lived such difficult lives, who have been told all these things, to hear the words that Franklin Graham was saying about Jesus and then responding to it instead of turning away and saying like, nah, I'm not interested, like so many others. They actually responded. They came to the front, and it actually got to the point where majority of the volunteers who were meant to be doing all this other stuff had to come to the front so we could start like handing out the Bibles and praying with everyone, because there was just so many people. We just didn't have enough volunteers to talk with everyone. And it was just so amazing to get to see that, and so really just moving, like almost tear-jerking, like so glad to see so many people responding. After each night, when the crowds of people were moving out, leaving to go back home, they had these big trucks out front the doors, and they just had these boxes of Gideon Bibles, and they were just handing them out. And I actually snagged one, which is pretty cool. But it's a Gideon Bible, New Testament, and it's all in Khmer, so they can all read it, which is pretty awesome. So that's probably the first big God thing that really happened over DTS, was getting to witness that, getting to be a part of that. But that was just for a weekend. We were quickly back to lectures. And one of our routines was every Tuesday night, we would do evangelism. So we'd split the class into 3 teams, and we would go out. There were 2 parks we would go to, and then also a hospital. So this is one of our leaders, Rami, and then a group of people there that we ran into and had a bit of a conversation with at one of the parks. And then at another park, one time we bought heaps of colouring in books, and we got all the kids together and sat down, and they were colouring with the crayons. And when it came time for us to leave, the kids were like, no, well, not in English, but they were like, no, don't leave. We want to keep colouring. And it's like, oh, sorry, we have to go. So they really loved it. And so many were just coming to us. And that was just really awesome experience, getting to actually go out into the community of Battambang and getting to meet the people who lived there. But one of the hardest bits of it is one of the locations, as I said, that we'd go to was the hospital. Now this is, I think it was either the 2nd or 3rd largest hospital in Cambodia, and it was pretty small. And going there was just so, I guess confronting would be a word, a bit shocking, because coming from Australia, where our hospitals are not the nicest places, but they're clean, they have good facilities. You know, when you're there, you're going to be taken care of, yeah. But it was so different here. It was so overcrowded. Hygiene just did not exist. There was like, when you walked into the wards, there would be mud and blood all over the ground. No one bothering to clean it. And to be fair, the nurses and doctors there were doing their best. And walking around this hospital, I even noticed there was a big shipping container, and it was from the United Nations. And it just made me sort of realize that like they're so underdeveloped in like the medical field that they need help from the United Nations, and lots of the buildings there have actually been funded by Japan and South Korea. So they need that help to build hospitals, right? And then so walking through there, so many sick and ill people, and it's very a heavy place, very heavy, and just feels hopeless there. And they have the big idols too, and it's just not a fun place to be. And no one there has a smile on their face. Everyone is sad and hurting, and so you get to go there and talk to them, and you get the opportunity to pray for some of them, but so many of them just reject it. And it's a difficult place to be. And now, I won't quite call this a mistake, but before I went there one time, I prayed to God, God, give me your heart for the people in there. Like, give me your heart for the people in there. Show me who you want to be spoken to. And very quickly, I found myself in what was the children's ward. And we were walking as a team. Mind you, indoors, we had to take our shoes off. So I'm super uncomfortable because this is muddy, bloody floor, and I have my shoes off. So already it's a bit like not a comfortable place. And you're just walking in the holes, and you hear all these sick kids, the coughing, the wheezing, and your heart just gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And it got to a point where when I was praying, I saw an image of a lady in a purple dress. And there was a hospital room off to the side. And I saw there was a little girl, maybe I think she was 8, laying on a bed unconscious with a respirator. And then a woman next to her in a purple dress sitting on the floor. And so I went to the leader I was with at the time, which was a woman called Mary. And I said, hey, I really feel like we need to go to speak with this woman. And after a back and forth, we decided it would be best for her and one of the female students to go, because we just figured she'd be a bit more comfortable because it was just her in the room. And so I was just sat outside, well, not outside, but outside the room on the chair while they went in to speak to this woman. And I was just sitting there and I was just looking around. I could see how dirty the place was, and I could hear all the sick kids from down the hall. And as I just sort of started praying for this little girl, all I could hear was just the beeping of the machines that she was hooked up to. And because there's such a gap between them, you find yourself holding your breath, just hoping for that next beep to come. Because when that beep stops, it's not very good. And I didn't even know this little girl, I hadn't spoken a word to her. But I had said to God, hey, God, give me your heart. And so in that moment, I experienced like his heart for this little girl. And it was just so heavy and saddening. Luckily, though, well, not necessarily luckily, but afterwards, my leader and the other student came out and they told me this little girl's story that had been told to them by the woman. Turns out the woman's actually her auntie. This little girl had been orphaned, and she's been sick since birth, in and out of hospital with issues with her lungs. And thankfully, her auntie actually let them pray for her. And in the coming weeks, I kept her in my prayers each morning, each day when we were doing our quiet times. But I reckon one of the hardest things is not knowing if she's okay or not. Because after praying that prayer and having the Lord's heart for this little girl, it's just such a difficult thing. But the fact that her auntie was open to prayer, it's amazing, because so many people in the hospital are just closed off. You'll be like, can I pray for you? And they'll go, no, I don't want that. And so I'm so glad that her auntie let us pray. And so that's something that I really won't forget. Anyways, moving on. Outreach. So DTS, few months, bit tricky, but got through the lecture phase. Then it came to outreach. So here is Cambodia. The yellow X is Battambang, so that's where I studied. The yellow circle is Phnom Penh, the capital. And then the red dots are the places I went. So the first one there is called Osam, and then Koh Kong, then Sihanoukville, and then Praving. Now, I don't expect you all to remember that, but that's the names of the places I went to. So first place, let me tell you my team first. This was my outreach team. This is a photo from our graduation. So here we have Mary. She was one of our leaders. She's from Myanmar. Then we have Sharon from India. Behind her is Leo from Vietnam. Here is Mai. She's Cambodian. Then Lim, also Cambodian. I'm in the back there. Then the guy from China is back there. We have to cover his face. And then our other leader, Yet, who was actually one of the youngest staff they've ever had, actually. And then Watana there on the side, also Cambodian. So that was my outreach team as we went to Osam, beautiful place. And there's a short video just showing you around the place that we were staying. So there was a house with a bit of a patio attached to it. Those are the water tanks that we fill up. We do our dishes just down there. This is our kitchen. Hang the clothes up there, and this is the backyard sort of area. This here is how we showered. So there's this big thing of water, and there's mosquitoes in it, and you get your scoop, and you scoop up the water and pop it on you. And I get that lots of places in the world do it, but coming from growing up in Australia, where a shower is you twist the tap and you get the hot water, very different experience, but you get used to it. But yeah, very different. Also, you don't see it in the photo, but one thing that I found challenging, for 2 weeks, we had one of the Asian squat toilets where you have to be like this. Now, I'm not used to that, so my legs would cramp like 30 seconds in. It was not a fun experience, and even worse, there was no hose or toilet paper. There was just a scoop with water on your hand. It was very, very humbling, to say the least. But hey, got to try everything at least once. This is how we cooked our rice. So we got a big cast iron pot, popped the rice and water in, and then we made the fires each day. And 3 times a day we would do this, rice every single meal, as you do in Cambodia. However, it did rain one day, and we couldn't start the fire, so the food was a little scarce that day. Here is what the markets would look like. So you go there to get your pork, and there's your pork's face. It was very different to supermarkets here. And the general rule was if the pork was purple, you don't buy it. The meat was definitely not to Australian standards, but hey, if you cook it enough, it kills all the bacteria, right? This was us on a tractor going down a road. We went for about an hour and a half along this track to this village. And so we were able to have a bit of a time with them, and we played some music, ate some food, did some ministry there, which was great fun. But we stayed there a lot longer than we were meant to because the conversation was just so good. And so it was a bit too late to be taking the tractor back. Luckily, though, they were near the river. And so they said to us, you guys can take the boats back. And so here's a quick clip of the boats on the river we took. Watana took the video. Here we are. Got the guitars and instruments all in the boats. And down the river we go. Now, yes, as someone just said, where were our vests? Look, safety doesn't exactly exist in Cambodia. OH&S is a very much non-existent concept. But no, it was good fun, great experience. Now, luckily, I was there for what's called Khmer New Year, and they take their New Year's very seriously. So we went down to the local temple courtyard, and they had this big dancing circle, and for hours everyone was dancing around. Because it's so hot, they have the fire truck squirting the water, and everyone's throwing baby powder at your face. They even managed to convince me to do one of the sack races. I lost. Anyways, we don't talk about that, but that was good fun. They taught me all the Khmer dance moves, and it was really great just getting to be involved with the culture, with the people, you know. But then later on, we got to do some kids ministry. So all the kids would come to the house and would play some games, do some dances, some action songs, and then we'd share some Bible stories. And it was really great just getting to see the joy on the kids' faces as they just played around, Just the joy of children is just it's really fun to be around. Another thing we did in Osam was dig a really big hole. Now, this was so that later on, when the next team came, they could actually build another toilet, because this place is what's called a pioneer base. So they're starting a YWAM base. And there was only one toilet there. And there was lots of people. So it was a bit tricky. So we started to make a new one. That is roughly as deep as I am told. So it took us a few days to dig. But hey, it's done now. And I've been told they have a toilet there now, which is cool. Then our time in Osam was up. We all crammed into a taxi and then drove off to our next location called Kokong. So this is near the beach, and so it's a fishery town, So there's always smells like fish. Anyways, that's besides the point. Beautiful weather, get the ocean breeze, even though it's very hot, but still beautiful place. However, the rains did follow us, and it bucketed. But it was still good fun. When it dried up, we did a lot of prayer walks and evangelism. So we would I think it was 3 or 4 hours each morning. We would go out in the sun and just walk around, just praying, seeing if we see someone, we'll be like, hey, and then start that conversation with them. And so probably did lots and lots of kilometers, 100 kilometers, I don't know. Anyways, we did a lot of walking that week, but it was fantastic getting to see what life was like. And one of the places we went to was a little saddening. This is the river. It's a bit dried up, but just look how dirty it is, how much rubbish and everything. In Cambodia, for whatever reason, they don't have the same sort of culture as we do, where you put away your rubbish properly. They just burn their rubbish in piles. And when you're done with something, you just throw it. And so naturally, that mostly ends up in the waterways, and it clogs up rivers like this. And so it was a little sad to see that. Now, on one of our walks, we didn't see very many people, but there were quite a few cows. And they were very cute. We got to pat them. They were very nice. But you see these guys just walking around the road randomly. If you're on your moto, you have to stop for the cow, because they won't stop for you. And if you hit that, it won't go well. But they just have a mind of their own. But they're good fun to see. Here's another place. These are all houses of people, and it's on stilts where the tide comes in. And this here is some of their fishery boats right next to the water. The tide was out in this photo, but yeah, you can just see how much rubbish and whatnot there is just from the pollution in the waterways, which is a bit sad. But luckily, we were able to go into a few of the houses here and start some conversations. We did also get to go out to some more villages, which is good fun. And we got to sit down with a few of them and have some food, share just in fellowship with them, play some music for them. And yeah, so that was good fun. Now, we closed out our time in Kokong with a team trip to the beach. I'll be honest, that was very fun. A little cheeky of us. Anyways, that is the Kokong team and us all there at the front gate of the YWAM base there right before we left. And that brought us to our next location, Sihanoukville. Now, this is a big port town. And so we stayed at the church there. Actually, when we got there, it was a Sunday, so they had a church service. And then after that, we made our beds in the church. So that's where we slept for the week. This was my bed on the stage with the mosquito net so I don't get eaten alive. Certainly a different experience, but it was great fun. This was our shower. It was a tap. There was always frogs. So you were never showering alone. But we did a bit of kids ministry again, which was good fun, and played some songs with them, did some action songs. It's always good fun with the kids. We also got to do a night worship session with the youth there, which was also very awesome to be part of. That's what it's like. We also got to visit a lot of churches. So this is one of the ones in the town. It was relatively new. I think they said it's only been there for about a year. We also did a bit of a beach worship session one night to try and get the community involved. And so that was pretty cool. So we got a few people join in. And then after we had done some stuff there, we then got involved with an organization called Impulse. So they're essentially the Cambodian equivalent to Youth Alive here in Victoria. So we started and helped set up for this big youth event. So carrying all the chairs around, all the big speakers. It was good fun. Lots of hard work in the heat though. But eventually this is what it turned out. So there was heaps of youth and kids come along, and there was some worship sessions. There was multiple speakers. It was pretty exciting and cool to be a part of. But one of the things, benefit from the long hair if you've noticed it, they actually got me to play Jesus, which was a little bit funny. So they gave me the shirt and they said, we need you guys to act out the woman at the well. And so we were deciding, who's going to be who. And everyone in the team was like, you're Jesus, you have the long hair. And so I got to play him there. And that was the well, the black thing, because we had limited staff. And that's my playing the woman too. But yeah, so that was some good fun, getting to act out on stage for all the kids and youth. This is just a few other photos. They had a little prayer room, and they had some cool worship sessions all the way up into the night. Here is the team that was involved. So we're up there too. So that's the group of people. They came from Phnom Penh, the capital, to run this for all the kids. Then that brings us to the final location, Prey Ving. This is out like really far, middle of nowhere villages. And so this was the road in front of the place that we were staying. Always cows down that road. Funny story, someone left the gate open and the cows got all in the house and started eating all the grass. I had to shoo them out. Anyways, that's besides the point. The police came in on our first day, and they got all the internationals to stand there with their passport. They checked our visas to make sure we were there legally. But they were good fun. They were kind enough. But it was a little stressful to have the police show up at the door, you know? And this is what the place looks like. It's just a lot of rice fields. Now, we weren't there at the right season. We were there in hot season, so the fields are just dry and barren. But those are normally filled with rice. Here is a bit of what transport looks like. So I'm on the back of a moto, so a little scooter. So that's the roads. You can see some of the houses there. And so we're on the way to the market to get some food for the day. Now, when we went out to do ministry, we were on the back of a truck. And so we were just sitting in the tray. No safety, no nothing. Very different from Australia. But it was definitely some good fun there. Here is what one of the school buildings looked like. And so it's just a house on stilts. And this is some of the youth that we were able to work with. We did some games, some ministry with them. This is us singing some songs, just dancing and having heaps of fun. This is some of the kids' ministry. So we'd bring them out on the fields, play a game, then bring them in to do the Bible stories and whatnot. Here's one of the churches that was being built. We actually helped clean the whole place up after the tilers would come in and put everything in. Here's another one of the buildings. And here's the inside, packed full of kids. And then we'd have them all jump in, and the whole building would be shaking. It wasn't very stable, but it was good fun, and the kids loved it. Now, I have just sort of gone through a lot of stuff just there, and that's just trying to show that it got very busy on outreach, and it became very taxing because we were doing stuff all day, every day in the heat, very little rest. And I reckon if it wasn't for God giving us a bit of a hand, we would not have been able to do it, because we were all so exhausted, but we were able to still get up and not be all like moany, but be joyful and actually bring the joy to the kids, bring the joy to the ministry, and be not complaining. One great thing about our team was that we didn't complain. We just took all the hardships and faced it together. Us and God could face the world, really. And so it was really amazing, and I really do thank God for that, because so many times in teams, when faced with the stress and exhaustion, they just let it get to them. The team starts fighting, and it's just not fun, and their ministries aren't productive. But luckily, we were able to stay focused with God, and He really sustained us through it all. And so we were able to see quite a few people hear the gospel, and a few people accepted, but most of our ministry was really helping and championing, anyways, that word, new believers, because lots of these places had already been by other DTS groups. So we were really there to just help them along in the early years of their faith journey, which was a privilege to be a part of. So yeah, here's one of the prayers. So that's all the kids. And it was so cool getting to see all the kids do a prayer. Here, it wasn't just the kids and the young adults and youth that were having fun, but we even got the adults to have some fun, dancing with some of the songs. So yeah, ministry for everyone, really. And one of the cool things, which I think you guys would appreciate, we got to be on the other end of the Operation Christmas Child boxes. As a kid, I used to remember packing them, but this time I got to see the receiving end. And funnily enough, they were actually from Australia. And so they had some Australian wildlife put on them, and it was really cool. We handed out some Bibles too. I was able to get one because I had a few spares, and they were like, hey, I want a Bible. So if you want, you can come and look at it. Another Kamai Bible. But it was so awesome getting to see just how joyful the kids were to get the boxes. Here they are beforehand when we were just talking a bit. And then because we did it in 2 villages, here's another group all with their boxes there, waiting eagerly to open them up. And here's a quick clip. And it was so cool getting to see the joy that receiving these boxes and hearing about God brings to these kids. And definitely inspiring, I guess, after packing them for so many years. But that pretty much brings us to the end of outreach. And so, although it felt long in the days, overall it went really quick. And so we got back and they got us all to share in front of everyone about our experiences. I got the privilege of sharing the fun stories. And so Watana was there translating for me over the outreach. He practiced his English by talking with me. And he got what we called Watana English. Only I could really understand him. And so I would translate his English to everyone else, which was a bit of fun. But he's doing great, and I'm really proud of how much the Kamai grew over the time of DTS. Now, we did have a week of lectures where they were doing what's next, how to move forward. And we had a bit of a time of just dedicating ourselves to God, and we had like the crosses, like a bit of a physical symbol, and we had some of the leaders lead us through some times of prayer and reflection. And I reckon, in the moments of DTS, you don't see what God's doing, but when you have that time to reflect, you see all the little moments where he led you, where it was, if it wasn't for God's prompting, I wouldn't have seen this person. I wouldn't have met them. I wouldn't have had that conversation. If it wasn't for God's help, I wouldn't have been able to have enough energy to get through that day. I wouldn't have had that smile on my face. If it wasn't for God's help, I wouldn't have been able to cope with being with so many people so close for so long, because I like my space, but jeepers. Anyway, so that was, God definitely helped in all the little things, not just the big things, just in the little things as well. And he really just helped matured me throughout this whole experience. And you don't realize it in the moment, but when you get a chance to reflect, you really get to see all those cool little things. And then we were able to graduate. That's the class again. And then, again, there's my outreach team. And then here is my last trip ride to the airport. Just a little fun. Last Asian orange sunrise. Very beautiful. Loved it there. And then I was home. I have gone a bit over time, but I do just want to quickly, briefly touch 2 minutes. Okay. The Bible reading, Armor of God, that was like a reoccurring thing for me. At the start of the DTS, beforehand, when I was packing, I felt God's prompting to write Bible verse in my shoe about the shoes of peace. And so that's what I did. They were brand new shoes, 6 months of Cambodia, anyways. And so I did that. And then when I got to the YWAM base, I then had a little welcome card and it said Armor of God on it. How funny is that? And then when we went off to outreach, they gave us our t-shirts, Armor of God. And so it was really a recurring theme. And it was like, all right, God, I hear what you're saying, the armor of God. And there's a lot more to it, but we've run out of time because I just kept yapping. But yeah, that is the gist of it. There's a lot more that I've missed out on, but I'll gladly have chats afterwards and in the coming weeks. But yeah, just thank you for this incredible opportunity. So yeah.